Welcome, everyone. It's so good to see your faces, and I'm so happy everyone's here. This is God Talk on January 2nd, 2025. Hard to believe it's here, but it is. And so let's go ahead and get started. And so we'll just start with our introductions. And so that's the name you want to be called, the pronouns you would like used for you, and the icebreaker question tonight is, do you have any home remedies for cough or cold that you ascribe to? So I have I'm Carol, she, her, and I just discovered OSHA root syrup, which is an herbal remedy that they sell it just kind of in a pure form, but they also have some that has a lot of other herbs like lysinium root and marshmallow root and things like that in it. So I find that pretty darn helpful for a cold or for a cough. I mean, Suzette, uh, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm Suzette, she, her. And I try to not get colds. I'm trying to think of what I do. I haven't taken anything. I mean, it would be like an herbal tea with honey or some kind of alcohol with honey. Something that but usually if I get a cough,
A
it's
hot
bad.
toddy, you mean?
Huh? A
Like a
toddy.
hot toddy?
A toddy. That's what
Okay.
I would do.
All right. All right, Leo.
My name is Leo. Pronouns are he, him. Uh, Home remedies. I like to drink. It's a it's a green herb. It's called epazote and moringa, and that seems to help a lot. Yeah.
Drink it like in a hot tea.
In a hot tea. Yes.
Nice.
I'll have to put all that in chat so we can look at how to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi everybody, name's Jared. You know all the pronouns. It's all of them. Same. I mean, we live in the same household. We drink the same teas, so they work and they do wonders for our stomach, for everything.
Kreger,
he, they, and I am currently using
Texas
Sugar-free?
cedar fever.
Okay.
Allergy relief.
it's a homeopathic treatment from HEB. And I haven't been struggling with cough during the daytime. It just seems to be when I want to lay down and go to sleep, that's when the postnasal drip starts. And, so I don't know. You put this under your tongue 3 times a day. So I've been doing it for, I think, a little over a week now. And it's mixed results. I guess I'm extremely allergic to cedar, and it's just worse since I moved to Austin because we're so close to the hill country and all them trees. But I'm making it.
okay. Kim?
I do not have any home remedies. But whenever I do start to feel bad and think something's coming on, I will take Theraflu. For some reason, that's the one over-the-counter thing that really seems to work for me. And it's
Nice.
usually the nighttime one. So that's it for me.
Okay. Did you say your name and pronouns?
I apologize. My name is Kim, she, her.
Thanks. Okay, Lynn, our question is, do you have any home remedies for cough or cold? So I guess my question's a little selfish.
Okay, I'm Lynn, she, her. And the only home remedy that I have for cough or cold is homemade chicken soup.
Mm.
Homemade
Yay.
chicken soup. It really works. When you're feeling bad, you're all stuffed up and that sort of thing. I mean, other than that, for cough, I always use Hall's um, throat lozenges. When I was a kid, my mom used to do it. I'm funny now. I noticed the Vicks Vapor Rub commercials where they're doing the uh, not the jar anymore. And somebody asked me last week, did you have to eat the Vicks Vapor Rub? Because they're saying, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, yeah, all the time. But look, my mom would, rub my chest with it and then stick her finger in the jar and give me, yeah, a fingerful of it. But that's, I haven't done that in a while. I tend to just go with home remedies. Chicken soup, it really does work. Makes you feel better.
I like that. Okay. Um, uh, okay,
Craig's
we'll,
joining us, Craig Puckett.
okay. Hey, Craig, we were just finishing up the introduction. So if you want to jump in, our question is, do you have any home remedies for cough or cold? And we're glad to see you back.
You're muted.
What about now?
Mhm.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Sorry, I got a new setup, so I was making sure everything worked okay. So Craig Puckett, any pronouns will do, and home remedies for like coughs or cold. Home remedies, no. For me, a bowl of spicy pho is the best way to clear out pretty much whatever is wrong with you. I can do that for like several days straight and just nuke it from inside out. Is my way to go about it.
Great. Okay.
Nice.
Suzette has, tonight we're talking about well-known people who have died this year. And so on the popular side of that, Suzette has a video from Katie Couric for us.
Yeah. When I watched it, I got a little teary because there were some people I didn't really know had passed. So I'm gonna share my screen and then call it up. So we'll see how this goes. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
I can't hear anything.
I didn't know there
It's
was,
just music.
okay. Can you see the people?
Yeah.
Mm. Sorry. So, wow. Some of those people were, I was surprised, and some of them, like, I really wasn't sure what their status was. Some of them were, but anyway, you can take it away, Carol.
Okay, you didn't want to speak about anyone in particular that
Um,
moved you?
no, just Jimmy Carter. I mean, he was an amazing human being that I grew up very much in touch with who he was. I remember, I think I was in fifth grade that he was president, and the peanut farmer, and his brother Billy, whatever his name, he had Billy Beer and all that stuff. So he was kind of a marginalized president, if you want to say that, because there were a lot of people who felt like he didn't fit in, to what a politician should look like. And he's exactly what I see as a politician should look like. So very hands-on, humanitarian, and that was a shocker. I mean, that was the one that was moving to me. But a lot of them, like Terry Garr, people that I grew up with, I'm starting to see my mortality, I guess, in these people. So anyway, I
Yeah, I
don't,
think
I'm not in touch with other people. Maybe there's some other people here that know of others who have passed that weren't in this reel. But I
well, when
think,
we talked about the list, I mean, I said we can also talk about infamous people. I mean, the people that
hmm,
that were in that film were well loved, and as you said, Jimmy Carter was probably grew in popularity after his presidency. um, some of us, I was pretty young then, um, too, and probably didn't appreciate him until I became more aware. And anyway, um, but it doesn't necessarily have to be well liked people. Um, we also talked about the CEO that was assassinated. So that has brought a lot of controversy in the media. Some people just really lauding the murderer, which I find it difficult to um, condone. I can't condone any that kind of violence. But it has brought some attention to the plight of the insurance um, insurance industry. So I guess that's something good that has come out of that. What are y'all's? Someone have some thoughts about that?
Well, I would like to maybe give a quick moment of reference to Sonia Massey too, right? Because she did get a lot of coverage, as a Black woman that was just going through a normal mental health welfare check that passed, right? And to this day is a normal, just an absolutely normal part of the conversation that Black Lives Matters often references. Yes, because it's death, like being being famous, right? Being recognized, right? These are all distinct things, and all the people that have died from police brutality deserve to absolutely be mentioned here. But yeah, I mean, like the deaths that have occurred this year there's been a lot, right? A lot of faces that we are all well aware of. And the CEO's death has actually been a very hot topic that have really brought a lot of people together in class solidarity on the issue. So it's very death has a way of bringing together a scattered family. And there's been a lot of deaths that have brought people together this year.
As you mentioned, some of the people from Black Lives Matter, there's, I can't remember if I mentioned this before, but one of the churches that I sometimes watch online is Plymouth Church out of Minneapolis. And they had a service for all the homeless who had died in their city that year. And that's a really nice memoriam for a group, including unnamed people, but a lot of people who were well known and well loved within the community. And so that was a beautiful way to say their names and recognize the things that we need to change.
I think I talked about this once before, but the man that built our house, his son was shot in a drive-by, or not, we don't know. It was some kind of road rage or something happened, and he was riddled with bullets, so it wasn't like unintentional. But we have to, those are more things to think about, like how people are dying and the reasons for them, like the shootings and the school stuff and the malls and the celebrations and all of these things where people gather and are now dying. So I was, this is a little off topic, but, shopping with my daughter-in-law, and we've heard several loud booms in our neighborhood, and it's some kind of new explosive that people are legally buying and just shooting it off like fireworks, and it sounded like a nuclear explosion. I mean, it's unnerving anymore to hear what sounds like gunshots. It's unnerving to hear booms that we don't know the origin of. But there's besides who died is the conversation of how people are dying behind that, I think. So we really need to open that up more. And I don't know how, because we just opted in for a political person who is in favor of guns at will kind of stuff. So it feels less safe to me to live in our world right now. Very scary. But I just brought that up because it just reminded me of the layer of people that aren't getting named really, but were tragically lost this year.
Yes, and it's telling how it's become so common, some of the school shootings, that you hardly even hear about them anymore. They just happen so much. So how can we build up each other's hope in the future, hope for humanity? Hope
Move
is
to an island. It's scary. What are your options?
well,
We voted.
together is one of them, just loving each other through it, and
Yeah.
trying to find our own hope, and we talk a lot about just our image of God, and I mentioned that in the devotion Facebook page today, about just like, what is your image of God, and does it make you feel safe? And I quoted, it was a quote from Anne Lamott, that was written actually by one of our elders in a MCC denominational letter, where Anne Lamott said, "God's not an old man in the sky. God's not an old woman. Maybe God is more like a combination between a drag queen and a Labrador Retriever." I really liked that.
It's comforting to imagine God in a way that we can assimilate with, and that makes us feel safe. So I guess that's one way to do it is, to think of our our creator in the shape and form of something that makes us feel safe instead of being afraid all the
Yes.
time.
It's but like a lot of this, and I think it's, I brought up Sonia Massey rather than jumping on the topic of the CEO, because mainly I think we really do have to, as Christians, examine our relationship with death, right? Like a lot of times, as Christians, we have a very atheistic view of death, right? Emotionally, right? Of course, like in our head, we're like better place, right? Of course, in our head, we're like, oh, they're doing, all this wonderful things, with God the Father, they're watching over, all the things, right? But emotionally, right, our reactions are very like they're the exact same as atheist people with the absolute fear of dying, right? Absolute fear of being reunited with their like it's mind boggling, right? Because for some people, some people who've had the hardest lives in this world, death is the ultimate release. It's the ultimate form of relief, right? And for us as privileged people who have it much less hard to have such a strong aversion to it and such a harsh relationship to it, where we view it as a punishment. I think as Christians, it's really important that we look at that and really hold ourselves accountable to not emotionally being in tune with our belief system.
Yes.
One of the ones that surprised me, but probably shouldn't have surprised me, was Phil Donahue, and seeing his name, because I actually was driving the other day, and not the other day, it was like maybe 2 months ago, and I was hearing like a retrospective on NPR about Phil Donahue, and when I was a little kid in the 80s, I would, stay home sometimes, and if I was sick or just during the summers, and he would be a constant voice on daytime television. And NPR was talking about how impactful he was as a progressive voice on daytime TV. And that one of the things that was really powerful about the way that he did that talk show, news, that television, that commentary that kind of spun into eventually the Jerry Springers of the world, um, but did it in such a really profound and original way, was to highlight underserved voices and to give them a space on national television to speak their own stories, to highlight their own struggles and those of their community in their own voice, and not to speak for them or to speak over them, but to use his platform to give them a platform to speak. And I think that's something that I did not really recognize at the time, being so young. And now thinking back on that, I'm like, wow, that was really true. Like that, he really, really did that. And granted, when you do that, when you open up those conversations, you get a lot of dissent. But it was very clear that he was doing so with an authentic desire to have these folks be seen and be heard. And so I thought that was really kind of amazing, because we think of daytime TV nowadays as being something so super trashy, right? And he kind of kickstarted that, and it really was so much more authentic and real and an actual true dialogue, that today has just obviously descended into just, you know, 24/7 vitriol and shot matches. But when he was on the air, it was something very different. And hey, you got an old white man like parading for marginalized communities and giving them voices on daytime TV to be seen and be heard, in their own voices. Like that's just really awesome. So kudos,
But
good
he
guy,
was
Phil
married to
Donahue.
Marlo. Wasn't he married to Marlo Thomas, the St. Jude's her dad founded St. Jude, so it does feel like
Yes.
he had more of a benevolent spirit rather than a hateful one,
I think
or
so,
one
yeah,
that encouraged discourse.
I believe so. And then Terry Gar, I don't know who said Terry Gar, but like, I didn't know she passed away. I didn't know that she passed away. And I used to watch her also when I was younger. Like, she was also one of those character actresses who always got pinned as like the ditzy blonde, but was, doing really good stuff and being a vocal advocate for like women's issues behind the scenes. So that was one that I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that she passed during 2024. And then I think something that's granted, I watched these folks when I was a kid, and they were adult representation when I was a kid, but somebody who I grew up with who was still older than myself, but I think more closer to my own age bracket was Shannon Doherty. That was really sad when she passed, because I know that she had been branded as the difficult one on set, when I think now later on a lot of folks are saying no, she was like really standing up for like good working conditions and trying to be an advocate for like other women on sets, and that was why she was like the bee on set, and how everybody like ended up kind of decrying her when she was at the height of her fame, and then really fighting cancer for I think the last at least 10, if not 15 years, something like that. Um, and so it was really sad to see her pass too.
James Earl Jones. He's a big advocate for particularly Black actors
And he had the most fantastic voice.
yes.
Most
Yeah.
fantastic voice to
Uh-huh.
listen to. Yeah. Well, I think as usual, Jared has touched the button when he talked about our as Christians, our views and relationship with death. And that really it struck a chord with me, because I think that most of us probably think, well, let me just say it this way. The more I realize that I have more days behind me than I have in front of me, the more I realize that I have to prepare for the eventuality of death, because death is a part of life. It's the cycle of life. And so a scripture came to me, and I don't know how many of you ever heard Donald Trump talk about 2 Corinthians. Did you ever hear him say that? He was talking about some scripture. And so in 2 Corinthians 5 and 8, just to add A
Corinthians, the
little
sequel.
levity. When I heard him say that, I just thought it was so. I'm like, okay, who says 2 Corinthians? But anyway, in 2 Corinthians 5 and 8, the verse is, "We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord." And so I'm not going to sit here and say, well, that's how I'm looking at it. But I will say, in my studies of the Bible through the years, for the past couple decades, there's almost a point where when you think about life ending. My mother lived until she was 92, and I was actually standing in the room when she drew her last breath, and that um, experience um, was an eye opener for me. And my father died in 2006, and he called me the day before he died and told me that he was dying and passed away late that night, early the next morning. And that too has had an effect on me. And they're just, I began to think about death differently, and not be so afraid of it. I think that what it is, I remember as a young person, going to funerals would just scare me because I was afraid of dead people. I was afraid to touch them and afraid to look at them and afraid. I remember as a little girl in Detroit, we lived in a walk-up flat, and the lady who owned the house rented the apartment that was upstairs, right? And there was only one way up and one way out, in and out for us. And she passed away. And I remember as a kid being afraid to pass by that door that led directly into her house because she had passed away. So I think the really the way we think about death in our own minds, and at least I did, is a fear. It's just a fear. It's the fear of the unknown. And I know from having been a training professional for the last 27, almost 30 years, that fear of the unknown affects us in everything, whether it's, I'm not sure where I'm going. I got this new address that I'm trying to GPS and find my way to go, and that there's fear. There's fear in everyday occurrences. There's fear, like going to the supermarket. Am I going to get shot? There's fear. Um, and the counter to that, in my mind, has been 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. And so whenever I feel fear about something, I said, okay, this is not of God. This is not of God. Does not give us the spirit of fear. So I can't dwell in that. Not to say that I haven't been afraid or that I'm not afraid about, you know, certain things, and whatever I'm afraid of. And in my life, I've been more afraid. It's better, my brother asked me one time, what are you afraid of? And I said, probably the better question to ask me is, I could list what I'm not afraid of before I can list all the things that I am or have been afraid of in my lifetime. So those are just some thoughts, and I'm saying all that to say that is death. The older you get, I think everybody will begin to think about it. Um, we are promised 70 years, and so I say people now, I'm in overtime. I'm a football fan, so I'm in overtime now. I'm 72. The Lord lets me live. I'll be 73 in July. So I'm learning to live with that fear and it's less and less as each year passes. And and the three people that I saw on the list, I thought Nikki Giovanni, the poet, because when I was a young woman, I wrote poetry in my 20s and my 30s, and so seeing Nikki Giovanni, remembering that she passed away, and James Earl Jones, and Louis Gossett, because I saw him with an officer and a gentleman, and I thought, my God, what a great actor he was, in that movie. So, yeah, a death, right? A death.
My cousin's funeral is scheduled the same day as Jimmy Carter's.
Oh my. Yeah, I forgot to mention Jimmy Carter. He was the president that I remember, the first president in my lifetime that I ever remember saying, "I've lusted in my heart," and he caught a lot of grief for saying that. But he was a Christian, and he wasn't afraid to let people know that he was a Christian. So definitely, he has been. I will not denigrate his memory by calling him a politician. I don't think he was. He was a statesman. He was someone who worked in government, did what he thought was the right thing to do, stood by that, and he became the humanitarian, after he passed away. But Habitat for Humanity, building homes for people, the Accord. I mean, he was just he was a, and then to learn he was a Sunday school teacher, and he was married to the same woman for all those years. He took some grief. He did. He actually, I read today that he was the president who established the Department of Education and tried to help people get financial aid for student loans. And now we have a president-elect who's coming in and says that's one of the departments of government that he wants to get rid of. So, um, yeah, Jimmy Carter, former President Jimmy Carter, um, I thought always was a Christian, kind of like President Biden. I think that people forget that Biden and Carter have both shown their faith as they were working. Yeah, they had to deal with, politicians and the this and that and the other. But the thing that stands out to me about both of them is that they are men of faith. And I so appreciate um, that from both of them as presidents of the United States.
Hmm.
And Jimmy Carter said, "I will never lie to you." And I kind of believe he didn't. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe one of the few people in our world that was really trying to be honest, you know, to the people.
Yeah.
Well, of all the people on the Today program, Memoriam, being in music ever since I could play drums at the age of 7, Quincy Jones would be, because Quincy Jones and his producing was literally the soundtrack to my fun life, Michael Jackson to start with, and so many people that he worked with through the years, and so yeah, Quincy was one of my favorites. I'll never forget the year that he and Michael were at the Grammys, just winning everything. What was it, 1983 or 1984? After um, that huge album that Michael had with Thriller. Thriller was the name of that album, yeah. And then I don't know. So, my brother passed away on April 17th of 2024, just 1 year older than me. And I've already said this story, but I spent a significant amount of time between April and September wondering what it was going to feel like to die of a cardiac event, because I had two people in my family, both at 62 pass. And so I don't know about you, Lynn, but you know, at first it's all the anxiety and all the fear. You know, I'm like, oh my God, what is this going to be like? Is it going to be gut wrenching pain to where I don't even have time to dial 911 on my cell phone? I mean, my brother's cell phone was right there by him. He didn't even have time to make a phone call. So, you know, so you go through all that. And um, what I found was after a period of time, I just got to the point where I couldn't even hold on to that anymore. I'm like, I can't, you know. So there's something beautiful about letting go. It's just like, okay, if I'm gonna come home to you, God, I'm ready. I've already been here for 61 years. That's not too bad. It wasn't too long ago that the average human being only lived to be like 30 years old in the early 1900s, I think. Um, so, you know, so there's this letting go. And to me, you know, God is the great isness. You know, the great isness that I can't even fathom, and the now, and the present. It's God is the isness and the nowness. And so I don't know, you know, then getting the calf done in September and finding out that, you know, it might not be that bad and I might be okay. Is a little bit of relief, but still there's that little bit of tension there. And I think it's good. I think I can work with it because it helps me want to do better and, you know, helps me want to make up people smile and bring joy to other people's lives and do good things. And, um, you know, because you know, none of us know how much time we have. And so when I heard Lynn talking, I was like, yeah, it's all about just, yeah, I gotta let go because I don't want to die just being in this total panic. I don't want to I don't want my spirit to leave my body just grappled with fear. I don't want to go that way. So, yeah, letting it go.
I think I I feel the exact same way. 2 years ago, I found that what the doctors found that I had a heart aneurysm.
Uh-huh.
But what they've said is that it's so small that, you know, until it gets to be a certain size, you know, just um, don't worry about it. You know, every 6 months we'll come and we'll do the exam and look at it and we'll see. And so for the first year, I was just panicked. You say aneurysm, you know, and I got my niece who, you know, who works with people, um, cardiologist. She works with cardiologists, you know, and she was like, you know, if you have an aneurysm, Auntie, probably won't be able to dial 911. I'm like, well, thank you for that, young lady. Really appreciate you. You know,
We're at a good
you know,
moment, though, I think, in history because, you know, with AI now, I think it's very exciting the treatments that are going to become
yes,
available for all the
yes,
major systems of the body, you know, the heart, lungs, you know, blood.
yes,
Uh, I
yeah,
think they're already coming up with some, you know, new diagnostic and procedural things where I just don't even know if they'll ever have to cut anyone open anymore in the future and
right,
do it like an open heart. It could all be done through veins and stuff like that.
right,
So that's a good thing about living in this time, you know, as
yeah,
opposed to even the treatments that I've gotten are so much more modern than what my mother had, you know, back in let's see, she passed in 2001, so um, you know, whenever she was under cardiac care, I didn't even know. I didn't even know exactly what they were giving her, what, you know, but
mhm,
there's a lot more. Each day that we live, more solutions become available. Um,
right,
so,
right. But that is when I realized that, you know, the other there are other scriptures. Why worry? Why should we
yeah,
worry? You know, we can't add a day to our life, can't take a day away, you know, we just we can't. And the whole thing is the spirit of fear. God has not given us the spirit of fear. He has not. So if I'm afraid of something, that is not of God. And so I just continue to, when I wake up in the morning and realize that God gave me another day, I say thank you and say my prayers and, go on about my business. I pray several times during the day. Don't get me wrong, because I have to. Driving from home to into Houston makes me want to pray. I pray a lot, but
There's a short time
yeah.
that I worked some with hospice, as a nursing student and a little bit as a nurse, and uh, that's just, you kind of learn a beautiful way of, as you help other people try to make the most of their remaining days, how to kind of do that for yourself a little bit. I think I've forgotten a lot of that, and I think, so for me, um, maybe I think letting go is a good goal. I think one of the things is, there's a lot of control. Helping other people has a component of control to it, and I feel so responsible for my son and now my mother as well. And I just keep thinking, and I'm not the most, I'm not very organized, and I don't have my affairs in order. And I just keep thinking, what happens if I die, and what's going to happen? But there again, I mean, there's I feel like if I could just trust more, if I had more faith, if you will, then maybe that would allay that fear. I don't know. And also maybe if I could just get my affairs in order, maybe I would.
You just have to do it. I mean, I put it off and put it off and said, yeah, I need to do this and I need to do that. But I think I that when you think about writing your will and saying what you want to happen, after you're gone, after you pass to the next level, it makes you kind of worry about it. It makes you more fearful of it. But
Yeah.
I
You have
think
to
the
still
only way,
savor too. I mean,
yeah,
you can't just spin all your wheels just getting in that
right,
type A. I got to get it done. I got to get it done.
right.
That doesn't. Keep thinking that'll allay my fears, but I don't think it.
No,
I
well,
don't think it
just
will. I think
I
I need
I've
more
got a will,
connection.
and I have a will. I don't know that that helps with fear. It only helps with, if, I know that the money is going to go to who I want it to go to, the family and whatnot, the way most people do. That gives a little bit of comfort, but it doesn't add another day or anything like that.
I stopped worrying about death several years ago when I realized that, one, I'm not going to know that I'm dead,
Mm.
and I'm not going to know when it happens. It's like, so why be afraid of it? And I think that having that mindset starting back then is what helped me get through my cancer diagnosis, because I said, if this is how I have to go, then that's fine. I did do all my wills and stuff like that, about 4 years ago. They probably need to be updated, but I'm not worried about that. I'll let those people deal with it. If it comes to that, if I'm, gone before I have a chance to update anything.
Hmm.
And so I just feel a sense of relief not worrying about it. Someone, when they ask me, "Are you afraid of dying?" No. It's got to be better than the life I've had, you know. It That's the way I look at it.
Yeah,
It's going to be a lot better than the life I've lived.
yeah.
So it's just nice to not fear. And I didn't know about that scripture. And you said it was Second Timothy what?
It's Second Timothy, first chapter, 7th verse.
Okay, so see, so now I'll just commit that to memory, and then when people, ask me, "Are you afraid of this? Are you fearful?" I'll say, "Oh no, God does not give me a spirit of fear."
God does not give us a
And
spirit of fear.
because,
That's
like I
right.
mentioned before, I'm not all that smart when it comes to the Bible, so I can't pick out verses like that. So when I hear them, I grab onto them, and it, will help me
Oh, this
learn
is
new
years. This
stuff.
is literally decades of reading the Bible, and it's not something that I can do easily either. This my Baptist days in church. It's not me.
Yeah.
Not to mention,
Yeah.
Kim, that as I age, the thought of letting go of this corporal unit, what do they call them in the science fiction shows? The corporal unit.
Mhm.
And every day there's a new ache or a new pain or something. You're like, oh, really? I have to, no, so this is new information. Now I have have to have a damn root canal or a tooth pulled or whatever it might be. And so the thought of giving up this housing unit for my spirit, as this thing gets older and older, it seems, it seems just again easier to let go of it.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah, because since my treatment, I've had a lot more problems like piled on top of it, and it's like every time I address it with my doctors, it's like, well, we'll try this, and it doesn't work. So I think my treatment's making me worse in some aspects. I think I would rather just stop what they're doing right now and take my chances at the cancer coming back than having to continue to go through what I'm going through. It's not out of fear, it's just out of tired of being in pain. So,
Right.
yeah.
My mother said, about 6 months before she passed, she had um myelodysplastic syndrome, I think is the name of it, and she had been undergoing the treatment, and then and she was 92, and the doctor wanted more treatment, and she said no, and she said, I feel pretty good. Um, I can still get up and dress myself. I can go to church, and I don't want anything that's going to make me feel worse.
yeah,
So she said no to more chemotherapy, and then about six, they put her doctor put her in hospice, and then about 6 months later she was gone. But it wasn't. It was she had a stroke, which is really what contributed more directly to her death than the cancer. And I I listened to her as she said that because the doctor was trying to get me to talk her into more treatment and more chemo, and I said no. She said no. So we're not. So I can relate to that. I have osteoporosis, and my doctor wanted to give me a medication to lower my cholesterol, which would contribute to more muscle pain and joint pain and that sort of thing. I said, you know what? I'm going to try to do it through diet because I don't need a medication that the side effect is going to give me more muscle pain and joint pain than I already have. So I think I'll just take my chances with the cholesterol and not add any more. So yeah, there's this. You're right, Gregor. Just this old body, you know, one pain after another. The older you get. So
just imagine, being free,
yes,
corporal unit, and going back to that isness, that love, that unconditional love, that
yeah,
spirit,
the
and
spirit.
then because there's no time there. I don't need,
Mhm.
so the way I think about it, it would be like, oh my God, that was so much fun, I want to go again.
Nice,
Right.
you
nice.
know
That's a beautiful thought
It's like
to,
coming to on Earth is like being on at a ride in the amusement park, and our ride, is 10 years, 70 years, 100 years, and we're done. We're like, that was so much fun. I want to go back again.
nice,
Mhm.
nice. Well, that's a beautiful thought to close on. We've gone just a couple of minutes over. No big deal. And um, so, Kreger, would you close this in prayer?
Certainly, Holy Creator. So this evening we've been talking about people who have passed in the last year. And what an interesting conversation to have. And again, we're just so grateful for all the variety of thought and opinion that's always expressed on God Talk. We're grateful for each person that was here tonight and giving their thoughts and ideas on this. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, and it needs to be had a lot and often, especially as we get older. And we can really encourage each other through the process of letting go. So we're grateful for this opportunity. As we move into the rest of this weekend, we're we're wishing everyone a happy new year and good things and blessings. I think words that we might need this year are courage, strength. Who knows what's coming after January 20th? We're just going to have to be on our toes and be alert and be aware of what actions we can take in the present moment for our people. So we ask for courage and strength, and help us to just breathe, help us to take a breath, God, and help us to push out the fear of whoever that is, Satan, the devil, whatever we might want to call that. We know that that fear is not you. And so when we are experiencing it, hopefully we have the mindfulness to take a breath and become aware of your presence in us and help us dissipate that fear. So we ask these things so graciously in the name of Christ, the Holy Son. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.